that I could kind of feel even better about what I'm getting into. I know you saw my shots that I took in the lobby at my last event with my speedlight, and they turned out great. I know, but like just because that worked for me doesn't like I still just don't have the confidence to think that it always will, you know?
Great. So look, if you're going to a room like an event room and you're thinking about, all right, I've got to walk around this room. There's various lighting in here. There's a window over there. How am I going to, set the camera up to be successful in pretty much all cases? Like I would say at a guess, like if I just look around here, the exposure, if I was taking a photo of like where you guys are, is like, 125th of a second, 3.5, 2000. Okay, so that's a pretty decent exposure of the lighting in this room. So I'm on ISO 2000, 3.5, and hold on a second. Yeah, I'll start that again. I'll go to one. I think I'll just bump the shutter. So let's go to 5.6 just to be safe. 2000 and like a hundredth of a second. If I'm on my 2470, I know that even if I zoom into 70, a hundredth is still pretty fine. So 100, 5.6, 2000, that's kind of like a fine enough exposure for this room. And then you
100,
go.
are you saying your 100 is ISO, or are you saying
Yeah.
that's your shutter speed?
I'll generally say, did I say before 100th? 100. If I'll say the on the end, so 100th is the shutter. What is going on here? I think I must be. Oh, that's what it is. I had the bracket mode on since yesterday.
Oh,
That's funny.
that's funny.
Bracket mode
Like
off.
something that I was kind of, because I'm just getting comfortable with the speed light. I was kind of surprised at like how high you still need to have your ISO to like for some of these shots, like I kind of expected I would need to have it like way down, and it's not. Like you're
Depends
like
on the room.
1,000, that's a lot.
Yeah, it depends on the room. It depends how hard you want the flash to work. So to me, these days, sorry, and that might have been on bracketing mode before too. Let me just have a look. So yeah, just looking around this room with the light in this room, it's just really that floodlight up there. An exposure for this room right now at 5.6 with these settings without the flash on is like, yeah, 80th, 4.5 and 2000 to get like, that kind of shot of this room. So that's where I'd put it. For like the ISO 400s and stuff, if you're in a room that's lit with daylight and stuff, you might be able to come down more than like that. But this is a pretty dim room really. It might look okay there, but it's pretty dim.
So the flash then, see, that's something I had to put into practice myself, because like I said, I really didn't realize that you would want the ISO so high. So you're just kind of using the flash to just augment a little bit and not necessarily have it take over. Is that right?
Well, what I'm about to do is just explain this. So if I wasn't using flash and my shot was that, and then now in my decision making, I'm like, I'm going to be using flash, so then I can just underexpose the room a little bit so that the background behind the flash that I'm flashing on is a bit dark, but you can still kind of see what's going on. So I will then underexpose. So I'll go, maybe pull that ISO down from 2000 down to like 800, same settings. And now my room, is kind of like dark in the background, but that's what I want it. So then when I pop the flash into the foreground and have it on TTL, right, the flash is going to meter for whatever's in the foreground, and like leave the background as it is, and that's kind of all right. If you find that you take a photo and it's still too hot, actually my flash is, just be careful, my flash there is metering at plus 07. So that's from the last setting I had it on. So I'm going to come back to 0. Like when you tell your flash to go up and down, that's saying to your flash, read the scene, fire what you think, and add 0.7 to it, right?
So then are you still in TTL when you do that, or are you now manual?
I'm TTL on the flash, manual on the camera, right?
Meaning if
different.
you bumped the flash up, like you were at up 0.7, right? Does that mean that you're still TTL plus 7, or are you actually manual now on the flash?
No, TTL plus 7.
Okay.
It's like exposure compensation. There's Caitlin. I'm just going to invite a few more. Well, Caitlin might have her kids and stuff, as she sometimes does. Um, I'm inviting a bunch of you guys. If you do want to come up and ask questions, please let me know. Invite, invite, invite. Um, so, um, so yeah, the TTL is like there's little reason to not use TTL. It's usually very good. It very rarely misses. Um, if you're having trouble with TTL and it's not doing what you think and you can't figure it out, then you can go to manual and kind of not, like find where it is. When you're working with people and clients, like or party people, and they don't have time to pose a second or third time because you're messing around with the flash, it really is just easier to put it on TTL, and it's mostly going to be fine, like pretty much all the time. If you are finding that the TTL is going a bit hot or a bit not enough, that's where the plus or minus comes in. So if you're on TTL mode and you take a shot and then for whatever reason you look down and go, oh my gosh, it's so dark, you just go plus. You go, guys, just one second. I'll just do one more, and you just go plus up, like up plus one, and then you just try it again, and the flash is now at plus one, going to put out a plus one stop extra light on what it thought it was doing. So if it thought it was going to be doing something that creates a dark image, doing it plus one is going to now push out extra light, and that should take care of it. So generally speaking, that usually is the best way to go. If you go to manual, you've got to really know how much flash you're going to use. And on the dance floor at weddings and stuff, that's generally the place to go manual when there's lights flying around and the camera doesn't know what it's looking at and all that stuff. That's generally the place that I would go. I'd pick a manual, but you've got time to figure that out, right? Because you can go around a dance floor, and we all know that dance floor photos at weddings, there's so much time you could just be shooting there, and you only really want 100 photos tops of the whole dance floor. But so you have time to play with that, and you can take a shot. And if you get your manual right, then you just know that if someone's 2 meters in front of me and I'm doing the shutter drag and I just want a same amount of flash to go on them, that manual is a good setting for that stuff. But if you're at a party and there's people around or whatever, you generally don't have that time to test something and go, hold on, guys, let me just see if I can get that right. So it's kind of better, I think, to go TTL at parties and stuff.
I feel like I don't know what I need to do to get the dance floor images and include the ambient light. I want it to look really nice and not just be just the subjects lit up. I'm
Yeah.
concerned that there's
So
too much.
yeah, so that's exactly. Let's just go back to what I started with here. So what you want to do when you walk into the room is go, what is my exposure for the room? So in this case, without a flash, it's 80, 4.5, and 2000. That's the exposure if I wasn't taking a flash.
Okay.
Now, no, you just look through your camera and go, okay, that's about where I would have been that flash. Then you underexpose the manual exposure on the camera. So if I'm at 2000, I'm going to come down to 800, and now I know that the ambient light in the room without the flash on it is going to be a bit dark and kind of moody, which is what I want. And now when I put the flash on, the the flash is going to light up the people in the foreground, and anything way back there is going to be what I set it on, which was dark and moody-ish, but still be
For
able to see it.
800, whereas the 2000 was so that everything was more lit up in the
The
scenario, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is that the 2000, if you have your exposure, if you have the camera set on the exposure of the room itself, and then you fire a flash on top of people, on top of what was there, they're going to be potentially overexposed, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to do that.
Okay.
You want to
So then I would
understand.
want to bump the speed light down a little bit, or I want to bump the ISO down.
So if if your exposure is good for the room without a flash, and there's light on people's face that's actually a good amount for the exposure, and you put any amount of flash on them, they potentially are going to be overexposed, right? So you
Yeah.
don't want to put any amount of flash above and beyond what is ambiently going on in the room. You want to find out what the room exposure is, underexpose, and then pop a little amount of flash on them to just light them up and have the nice background there. If you underexpose the photo too much, a couple of things is happening. Number one is you're going to get that look where you light just the people up and the dark, it goes dark behind them. And in that instance, that means you're also working your flash harder than it needs to work all night.
Mhm.
So you're going to burn through the battery and all that stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Let me just say hello to some people. We've got over 10 people in here, guys. Welcome in. Say hello in the chat. I'm
People need
talking
to
with.
do this because I'm talking. I can't do it as well.
I've got only got 359 likes
Yeah,
here,
come on,
guys. If you're
guys.
out there, come on, guys. And I hit this like a goal here somewhere too to get some little things or whatever. But I don't know how it works. Hi everyone, Randy's here, guys. If you're in here, if you're not in Humble Toggles Club, come join us. Jessa, Becca, Caitlin, Susie, Crobber Like a Totter's back. How you doing, mate? That's Matt, is that right?
Yeah, it's
And
Matt.
then Rochelle. Rochelle joined recently, right? Rochelle, you joined Humble Toggles Club, is that right? Rochelle, say hello. I haven't followed you, but I recognize the name. You were, I remember that name. Man's best friend, and Mikey. Hey, Mikey, say hello in the chat. We're going through some flash stuff here, guys. Jessa is in our community of Humble Togs Club and asked me specifically to do a live today about flash. So we're talking through her questions. So we've talked
I'm
about.
ready. I'm ready for my next question when you are.
Great, go ahead.
Okay, so I know that speedlights typically can only go like up to 1/200th or 1/250th of a second, typically. So for the shutter speed. So,
Yeah,
but you're saying in your scenario that you had it set at 1/80th of a second.
yeah.
Explain. I don't know why you would go that low.
Well, let me ask you. The thing about the 250 is that some flashes, now this flash with this camera can actually go faster than the 250.
Yeah,
So
just
depending on,
some, most are the what I'm saying, but there
yeah,
are scenarios like yours. Yeah.
yeah. So that is just the maximum or the fastest the shutter
Right.
speed should go. You can absolutely do what I'm doing and do an 80th. That's fine.
Well,
You
I'm
just
just asking
can't.
why, because like I never shoot at such a slow shutter speed because I don't want any motion blur. But then again, I know that like the flash helps with that, right?
Yeah, so the flash itself, remember that in the module I talked about the shutter opens and the flash fires a tiny, tiny percentage within that time. So
Mm-hmm.
even at 1/80th of a second, 1/250th of a second, it's still firing at like 1/1000 or 10,000th of a second within
Okay.
that time frame. So that's how you get that dance floor vibe of like a sharp person and then a blur, 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 blur. Like the flash is going to fire at such a small amount of time, especially if you do those kind of settings, that you can be a little bit slower on the shutter. But again, 80th isn't so slow because I'm got a 24 to 70 lens here. So even if I zoom all the way, I'm still only at 70. So 80th is still that rule of not being on a shutter that's slower than the length of your lens, right? You know that rule?
Yeah, I just like rarely shoot under 160 because I really, and then not with necessarily with the speed light, but just like
Yeah.
normally,
So
because I
normal,
really want sharp images.
yeah, I'm the same. I'm the
Yeah.
same. I generally stick at about 160 most of the time. If I
Yeah.
whack a flash on, I kind of in my brain I'm like, well, I can slow down a little bit now
Okay. See, I don't know
because
that. That's why where I'm getting at that because like I didn't get that.
yeah,
That's and I don't
if
understand. I'm trying to understand how that even works. How it makes it to
yeah,
where you can get
it's
away with it with
because
flash.
it's because remember I said the exposure for the room here says 80th 4.5 2000. Okay, so that's the exposure for the room. If I was taking that photo all night, I'm going to get some blurry photos, right, without a flash.
Right. Right.
So that's
Yes.
that's why you need to use a flash to light up the foreground, to get light in people's faces, all that stuff. But inherently, that flash is going to mean that you are going to freeze the people. But just be careful you haven't overexposed the room, because if you are shooting slow on the shutter and you're exposing for the room and adding flash to it, you're going to get this weird blurry people through their own flash, exposure. Like there's photos where you'll see the flash that's gone on their faces, and you'll see their movement of their own face during the 80th of a second because they're laughing or whatever. That's not a good idea. And the reason that's happening is because your actual exposure on the camera is too high, and you're actually exposing for the room and putting flash on it, the people. So you want to find a general exposure of the room, and then be careful. Like, see, in this room here, let me just pull you guys off here for a second. In this room here, right, I'm in a dingy, dark little corner, but over there's a window light coming in, right?
Yeah.
So if you're like, oh, happy, happy dancing, this party, and you come over here, all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, now I'm in a different area. And if you use the same settings, my exposure for over here is way overexposed. If I take a photo with a flash there, look, it's like super hot because I've come to a different area where I haven't thought about the lighting in this area. So you've always got to make sure that your exposure on your camera is underexposing the light of the room in that area. And then the flash is popping just a bit of light on the foreground. So in that area, I would be at, come down to like here, 400 for starters, 400 ISO. The exposure for this room is 1/60th at 5.6. Like
Okay,
that's
so all right, let's pause there then. I
yeah.
don't get, so I shoot manually,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess there must be something I don't understand, because how do you know that the room is 160th of a second? Like, I usually like choose what I want, and that's why I stay at 160. What's telling you that? Because I feel like you're just looking at your camera in the other room and you're like, it's 180th, and you knew that was the exposure. There's a lot of background noise, by the way, but
So,
what
yeah.
told you that? How are you knowing that? I mean, I just go with what I think about. What do you know?
Yeah. So yeah, the bit that I know that, is something that is, when you guys are learning photography and to be photographers, there is a point that you will get to when you'll start to be like, oh, I see light now. And when you're learning, you're thinking about like, what settings have I got to put the camera on, and all that stuff. But as you get more and more experience, what will happen is that there is this kind of period, and it's maybe not like a sudden period, but there's a period where you'll get into like, oh, all this makes sense, and the settings that I choose on a camera isn't to pick the right numbers or the buttons. It's just to pick the right things based on the light in the room. So the question you're asking me is, what am I seeing? And I'm like, I'm seeing the light in the room. I know that over there, the light in the room is going to be back around 5.6 or 400 because I've just shot enough that I know that light coming through a window is somewhere around there. Light in a dingy room like this room, you can see my face now, like that's dingy. I'm going to have to be
Yeah.
opening up to like 2000 to get,
But you're saying, okay, so when you were back in the darker area, you said that you knew it was 180th of a second. And I look at it
180th. Yeah.
like, okay, that would maybe be with the flash on, but I'm thinking if I was shooting without the flash, I certainly wouldn't want it there. I'd want it at 160 minimum. And so
Okay.
that would mean that I would need to bump my ISO. I think you had it at 2000, so maybe I'd go to 3000. I don't remember what
Yeah.
you said now.
Yeah.
And of course I'd be choosing my aperture accordingly as well. But
Yeah.
I usually kind of start with the shutter speed. I absolutely never think it's 180th of a second. Like, I just don't ever feel like that's a good idea.
Yeah. So
Unless I'm on a tripod.
no, and that's fine. And I'm with you generally. Like, I'm always between, like, when I go down to 125th, I'm like,
Yeah.
less than 125th is basic. When I'm not shooting flash, I don't shoot generally less
Okay.
than 160th, because I do portraits usually on 85, and I'm just always, that's in my mindset too. So I agree with you on that. However, when you're using flash,
Okay.
you can definitely come down to say about an 80th. If you go down to like a 50th and a 30th, then you're
Yeah.
starting to get that shutter drag thing, but you'll still get sharp people if the flash is firing in front of you, just so long as the ambient light in the room isn't also, overpowering them, meaning that you haven't thought about the fact that you're actually exposing for the room and adding flash on top of that, which is be too much on the people. So you got to always look at the light in the room, underexpose that, and then pop your flash on TTL, and it's going to fire in the foreground and be quite happy about it.
Yeah, that's new information for me, and maybe it was it's explained in the modules, and I just didn't absorb that because
Yep.
I'm really like kind of going on about this because I'm amazed to discover right now that I can bring my shutter speed down so low with the flash and it be okay. So that's like shocking information for me.
Sure. Yeah. So that like just test it.
Yeah,
Let's test it now. Let's have a play
yeah.
with it, that idea, and let's see what happens. And I'll show you the shutter drag thing, which I was doing at a bar mitzvah last night. Where's the camera gone? This is the most common words that I ever say is where's the camera gone? I always put it down in shoots and then leave it. It's over here. All right. So at an 80th of a second, this room. So if I go back to, I'm going to 80th, well, yeah, 80th of a second, f4 and ISO 800. All right, that is showing me that I'll underexpose this room. All right, I'm gonna take a photo of you guys. Oops, I'm still on manual focus from last night too. All right, so there, I hope you can see this pretty well. So there, that's you guys on an iPhone, right?
Yeah,
And that's looking a bit overexposed, but it's
yeah. It
not.
looks overexposed. Yeah.
It's just because of the black of the camera. So there it is. That's it. Oh, come on. Come on. There we go. So that's that shot. Now watch this. If I'm at 80th of a second and I do the same thing and then do this, let me see. Now that's blurred. It's actually focused on my jacket there. Hold on. Yeah, it's the jacket's looking nice. The iPhone's not. Let me slow it down even further, and I'm going to bring the ISO down a bit further just to make it a bit darker. I'm going to try not the phone. I'm going to try the pole. Nah, let me try here again. I'll just try here. Yeah, it's working on the pole, but not the iPhone. Must be because this is what's happening. It's like, can you see that?
Yeah.
It's getting some motion and stuff. I assume that that means the light of the iPhone, because the light of the iPhone is a light source, so it's probably overexposed on the iPhone. Yeah, the exposure of this iPhone, including that light, is actually overexposing in the current room. So if someone was in the dark, this stuff generally works for dark dance floors. So if people are in the dark and you do that like that tilt thing, so you take a photo at 40th of a second and go like that with your camera, you're going to get the lights, the disco lights of the room blurring, and the people who were in darkness got lit up for a microsecond with the flash, and they'll be, sharp in the if your focus is on and everything. Um, but that's how that shutter drag stuff works. But you've got to have darkness because what was happening there was that the exposure of the room or of this light source, which is the iPhone, is actually burning too much into, so it's not getting a sharp thing. Guys, say hello in the chat. If you're just joining for the first time, we're talking about flash photography. This is Humble Togs Club and a community of photographers who aren't dicks to each other. Come and say hi. Do we need to step back, Jess, and go through that again in a different way, or
Well,
do you
yeah,
have
I'm just
other thoughts?
absorbing this because like I shot the other event with the pictures that you saw at probably 1/200th of a second with the speed light.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's the outdoor stuff. Like
no, the indoor at night, after like when everyone was out in the lobby saying
the
goodbyes, like kind
lobby
of like the
stuff.
party afterward.
Yeah, the party stuff. Yeah. So you're at
Yeah,
200th of
so
a second, 200th of a second, 5.6, and like ISO 400.
probably, yeah,
So your backgrounds were probably darkish.
darkish, yeah.
Yeah, so that's fine. It's fine. If you wanted to lighten up those backgrounds,
I
you
do,
would just
yeah.
you would just open up the shutter and up the ISO a bit, but
Okay.
not go so far that you're actually exposing for the people's faces and adding flash on their faces, because then they'll be overexposed.
Okay. Yeah, this is Anyone else like not know this, or am I the
There's
only
a friend,
person not knowing?
Oh, I didn't
Anwil's
know
in
any of
here.
this either.
Okay.
Hi,
Thank
how you
God.
doing? Let's say
That's
hello.
funny.
Lost.
I
Is it
know. That's why I keep
Caitlin's
asking
lost?
you. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Say it again.
That's
Really?
yeah. So that's fine. Let's go over it. Let's go over the basics of starting with a flash on. First time you got a flash on, and you're like, what do I do? How do I pick my exposure for a scene? Full stop. The way you do it is think about the scene without the flash first. So I'm zooming out and I'm going, okay, look, the lighting around this whole room, and I'm looking around the whole room, going, all right, what do we got here? Generally speaking, and most rooms, especially party rooms, unless there's a big window or a natural light source, because realistically, the light sources in the roof and the ceiling and all that are so minimal in power compared to daylight, right? There's like 4 or 5 stops of light difference between anything that's coming from outside the actual natural light of the day, whether it's direct sunlight or just light coming in from a window. That light is something you have to be aware of. If you're in a room, most parties are in rooms that don't have any daylight, right? You're generally inside, it's nighttime. So if you're in a nighttime environment and you look around, there's no daylight in here, then what you can do is just like look through your camera and look around the whole room and go, oh yeah, my exposure for this room, if I didn't have a flash, would need to be, and it's pretty typical, to be at like 2000 ISO, 5.6 or say 4.5, and like 80th, 100th of a second. That's
But okay,
generally the
see, there you
setting.
go again.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
Ask
I would
me.
never shoot at that low. Like, okay, you're saying that's the exposure. Are you saying that because you know the lens, or not the you know the lens, so you know that's your shutter speed? Because like I again wouldn't shoot under 160, so I would be dialing, saying the room is to be exposed with that minimum of a shutter speed.
Yeah. Let me. I think I know where we're going wrong here.
Okay.
When I say the exposure of the room, I'm looking around going, that's the exposure of the room. I'm not saying it would be a good shot.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just looking around going, in order to get the light, the amount of light in this room is giving me about an 80th at 4.5. And look, yeah, I can go to 2.8 and be at 160 if I want. Like
Yeah.
that's another way to say the same thing.
Yeah.
But both of those things for parties, those photos aren't going to be good, right? At 2.8 with people saying
No.
that's not going to be
No
good.
one's going to be
So
in focus. It'll be a
yeah,
nightmare. Yeah.
so that's what I'm saying is that
Okay.
when you want, this is why you want to shoot flash. People that go, oh, I never shoot flash. It's like, great, go
Right.
and do a corporate event. Like, you need it sometimes. So
Yeah.
looking around a room, you go, all right, so the exposure of this room, you're just using the camera like a light meter, and you're just going, the exposure in this room, the light in this room is measuring at about 2000. um, like I just like to keep it about
And are
about
you doing
4.5.
something to the, like, how are you, like, you said you just know, but you're measuring
I'm
mentally,
looking.
or
No, no,
are
I'm
you
looking.
fiddling with the back of your camera?
No, I'm looking at the
Say it
light.
in the thing, like, are your numbers in the little screen
It's not
or
numbers.
the
It's plus and
viewfinder?
minus. It's plus and minus, right? You know the light meter.
Yeah, yeah, the meter. Yeah,
It goes plus and minus.
yeah.
So it's just I'm the aim of
Oh,
So
what's that?
you're
I
trying to
understand. Sorry,
get
sorry.
your meter into the center of the meter so that it's
Yeah,
properly exposed. So you're doing things right, whether you're adjusting for your ISO or for your shutter right now, right?
yeah, yeah. So when I look through here, right now it's like minus. It's like minus a quarter. So that's at 2000, and that because I went up to 160. So I'm at 4.5 because I don't really want to go less than 4.5 for a party event. So I'm at
Yeah,
4.5. I'm at 2000, and like you said, if I want to stay at 160, sure, I can go up to 4000 ISO.
yeah.
But me knowing what I know, I'm like,
Right,
I'm happy
right.
to come. I'm happy to come down to an 80th, being that I'm on a 24 to 70. I'm happy
Okay,
to come down. I wouldn't go much lower than an 80th unless I want to get that shutter drag party vibe.
okay.
So I know I can go to 80th with flash, or if you want to be safe, it's no problem going up to 4000 and up to 160, 160th of a second on your
Yeah, but I don't
shutter.
want to go that high, right? Because then I'm going to have more noise that I'm going to have to
Yeah,
deal with, and I
yeah,
don't want to clean all that up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really interesting to me. Like I like this is fascinating to me. I literally didn't know that without a tripod that I could go down to that slow of a shutter speed with a
I,
flash. I didn't know.
you and me are probably the same in the lenses we use, because I'm always
Yeah.
on the 85 and always shooting portraits. So to
Yeah.
me, 125 is the bottom of that ladder.
Right.
However, there are a lot of photographers, like Caitlin shoots 35 all the time on a
Oh.
35 mil lens. So she realistically, in theory, could be very comfortable shooting at a 50th of a second of her bottom rung. But that's scary as hell to us.
Yeah, that
because
would
we
never
know,
happen here.
right? But Caitlin, what do you say to that? If you're shooting 35 mil, do you ever shoot
Uh,
at 50th of a second?
no.
Okay, sure. In
I'm usually
theory,
like 250.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, I
that's fine.
like it high.
That's fine, and
I'm
that's
too nervous
safe.
for that.
Safety net.
You could do some tests with like landscapes or flowers and stuff, Caitlin. But theoretically, the rule about shutter is that if your lens is really wide, right? When you wobble your the thing with camera shake, right, is that it's either motion that's moving in front of you or it's motion from your own hands, right?
Yeah.
There's two areas of motion. So if your lens is a wide lens like a 35, the amount you would have to move to create actual shutter camera shake is like that much,
Which I do a
right?
lot because it is manual. Yeah. So I
Right,
struggle with that a lot.
right. So you're shooting up in there, but theoretical photography science says that you can shoot on a 35 mil. Like the shots I did yesterday, the bracketing ones that are in the group, those ones were handheld, and they were the second and third one. The first one was a bit shaky. The second and third one were absolutely identical to make bracketing work, and that was handheld, but that was 24 mil.
Does your
And I was
lens
Oh,
have
okay.
in camera, or does it have the stabilization thing on your lens? Because my camera has it, and the lens I have has it too.
yeah,
Yeah.
the 24 mil. There's not really a This one doesn't have it, but there's not really a point with having it. Maybe it does. I don't really know, but
I don't think it helps.
it doesn't matter really. It helps on the 70 to 200 has one, and there are
Yeah.
guys out there that get all talky about how they shoot at 200 mil at like a 50th of a second because of
Oh my God,
the
no.
shutter thing, and I'm like, it's just showing off. Like, why would you do that? Yeah. So
Added stress.
exactly, you don't need that stress.
No, thank you.
So coming back to you guys being comfortable about shooting parties and stuff, what you want to do is look around the room and go, how low can I get my ISO at 4.5? How low can I get the ISO and still have decent photos? And if that means you have to come down to an 80th, that's fine. If you're nervous about it, don't be nervous. Stay up where you're comfortable and raise the ISO, right? So you look around the room. This is with flash off. You just look around the room and looking at the light meter and go, all right, right now at 80th, well, I've gone up to 4,000. That's too high. So I'm coming back down to 2,000 ISO, 80th of a second and 4.5. Now, if I look all around the room, I'm going, all right, this whole room looks like that's about right. So I got, the light in this room, if I was shooting without flash, which won't be good because the lighting's bad, right? If I wanted to take photos and have decently exposed photos, those are my settings. So now I go, great, I'm going to put the flash on and I'm going to underexpose the camera by a good amount. So I'm going to go, rather than 2000 ISO, I'm going to go down to 800.
Okay.
So now I
That's a
know.
big jump. Why are you deciding like 800? I'm going to take 1200 right off the top there.
Well, it's not 1200, it's doubles. Every stop is a double. That's with all photography. So a 60th to 120th of a second is what we call one stop because you've doubled the number.
I thought you said
800,
you were at 2000 ISO and you're going down to 800. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's really only one stop. It's because 800 to 1600 is one stop.
Yeah.
And 2000 is just 1/3 more. So it's 1.3. So I've just really come down one stop.
Okay.
It sounds like a big number, but as you go up, the bigger numbers, they get bigger. Yeah, they get bigger. So 1600, 3200, 6400 sounds huge, but you're only 3 stops above 800. So now I'm like, okay, I've looked around the room and I've got no chance that if I have the flash on, I've got no chance that my subjects are going to be lit by the room and my flash and be overexposed. That's what you're going for here, right? So once
Hold
you
on,
get that,
processing. I have no chance. Say that again. I'm trying to
I
absorb.
had, yeah. Once you've gone, okay, here's the exposure of the room. If I was
Yeah.
shooting with no flash,
Yeah.
this is what I want to have, which is, again, not good photos because the lighting is bad. But
Yeah.
if I have to use this lighting, those are the photos I would get by shooting on that exposure, which is, say, 2000, 80th of a second, 4.5. So you look around, you go, okay, that's great. I'm going to underexpose that by at least a stop, if not more. Come back and usually pull the ISO. So if you're at 80th of a second, pull the ISO down. If you're nervous about 80th of a second, go to 125th and go to a 1250 on the ISO. Split that difference.
Yeah.
So it'll be the same in the room. So now all around the room, I'm now underexposed by at least half a stop, whatever. And then you're thinking to yourself, all right, so now I know that if there are people in the room and the lighting of the room is lighting their faces, when I put flash on their faces, it's not going to add on to the light that's already on their faces, and then they'll be overexposed. You're underexposing the room, so any light
Yeah.
on people's faces, the flash here is just going to help fill and, fill their faces with light, whilst not being overexposed, because the TTL-ness of the flash is going to meter for how much light it thinks it needs, and usually it gets it pretty damn close.
So you're also saying that if I need to feel comfortable, I could shoot at 125th a second, and just the ISO would have to be maybe a little higher to balance that, and I should still get pretty decently exposed flash photos. But ideally, because I'm gonna have a 28 to 70 specifically at this event, that I can go down to 1/80th of a second and have my ISO down pretty well to then have it like I'm relying on more light coming in from the slower shutter speed, not necessarily bumping the ISO, so that maybe my images will have less noise and look good, right?
Correct. You just want to be very careful that you haven't underestimated the light that's on people's faces, because if you're down there and you want to make sure you're definitely underexposing the room, because if you're not, and parts of the room are lit more than others, and then you come over here with the settings that were fine over there, and you come over here and now you're at whatever you're at, and you add flash to people that are in already good light or enough light that's exposed for the camera, you need to kind of stop down. So quite often, again, when you say, how do I know? If I'm walking from that side of the room and I'm walking over here, I'm going, oh, there's a bit of daylight over here, I'm just going to wheel the ISO down. I just come over here and I go, okay, now I'm at 400. Boom, boom, boom. And you know that the flash is going to figure it out, and maybe it'll be working a bit harder, but you're safer to have the ISO down and underexposing the room and have the flash work harder than have the ISO too high. And if you're already overexposing the room and putting flash on it, that's when you're just going to get overexposed stuff, and you're like, why am I overexposed? So you always, in all areas of a room, want to be underexposing for the light that's there. The flash is just popping on people's faces. And that all of that doesn't matter in a room that's dark.
Like okay, if you're in so next like question anything. Then. So let's say I'm just making this up. Let's say I have my ISO is at 1600 and my aperture's 4.5 and I'm at 1/80th of a second, and I go a different direction, like you said, and it's like, oh, I'm not as good. I should either be fiddling with the ISO, or should I be bumping up or down my speed light?
Okay, so isolate those two things as completely separate ideas.
Okay.
The fiddling with the camera is to do with the light in the room only, right?
Yeah.
Because the with TTL set on your flash, the flash will send out a signal before it fires the flash and figure out how much flash it's going to put on the people, and it will make its own decision, the flash, for how much light to put on the people. Your decision making is how much light is in the room, and how much do I want to have the background lit up is your decision making down here. When you go plus and minus on the flash, that's telling the flash, hey, idiot, what you think you want to put on these people, put another bit on top of those people for the reason I know in my brain. Like the guy has really dark skin. The guy's wearing a black suit. if someone, because the way the camera, the flash is looking at the scene, it's kind of assuming everything is gray. So if it assumes everything's gray and goes, oh, I need to put an amount of light on that, it's just doing that decision based on the fact that everything's gray. If everything is black, it's going to need to over assume, and that's when you go ++1, +2 even. Like if you're firing flash into a black ceiling in a bar, you have to go +3 to go, flash, I know you think that's going to bounce back. It's not. Fire way more light than you think. Like that's when you're
I
trying
need
to
a nap.
flash.
I'm so tired now. No,
You
I hear
just
what you're saying. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just, it's intense. It's intense.
I would just separate those two parts of your
Okay,
brain
okay.
and what you're looking at. It's the flash is a brain of its own. It has its own computer in there, and the
Yeah,
camera has its own computer. So you want to decide with the camera, just like you would if the flash wasn't even here. You want to decide, okay, what's the light in this room, and then you want to go, because I'm using flash, I'm going to underexpose that, and do it on the
yeah,
ISO. You can do it on the shutter, but again, if you're at like 1/25th or something, you don't need to mess with the shutter. And again, what can happen is that if you're shooting with a flash like yours that freaks out after 2/50th, if you're messing with the shutter a lot and you don't notice, you might have gone to like, oh, I'm stressed out, and you might have gone to 400th and you're like, why is this not working? And you must be stressing out. So I wouldn't mess with the shutter when you're using flash photography. I'd pick it at 160, 125, hundredths, 80th, something like that, and just leave it there. Your aperture isn't going to, well, it's going to affect the ambient light in the room a little bit, but the main thing you're thinking about your aperture is how many people am I shooting in a
yeah,
line, and is this going to be, are they going to all be all in focus, or some people are in focus?
yeah. And
So
you're saying, unless I'm doing like a big group shot, on average, dance floor photos should be good around 4.5.
yeah, 4.5, 5.6 if you want to be safe.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But again, that you just balance that with how much ISO you want to push, and then you figure out the light in the room. You underexpose probably by using the ISO, by pulling the ISO down a good stop or a bit more than a stop. And then you pop your flash on with TTL on, and all things being considered, honestly, most of the time for party photos, most of the time the TTL is just going to work. It's magic pretty much all the time. And then, even if it gets a little bit off, we can come and pull it in processing, a little half stop up or, down or whatever. So most of the time you don't have to worry about going +1, -1 on the flash head itself. The times you would want to do that is when you're literally firing into like black. So,
Okay.
black ceiling,
Or
there's just
open sky, right? It's like super dark, maybe.
open sky. What do you
Yeah,
mean?
like no ceiling. Like if you're out, like out here, we have like a lot of events just at night, no roof, no
Sure.
sky.
If you are, yeah, if you're using a flicky card like this guy, I don't
Mine
use
doesn't
any of
have
those.
one, by the way.
Okay, that's fine. So you can make your own, put a business card on a rubber band.
Or I
That's
have
all it
a
is.
dome. Like I have a dome for mine.
You can have a dome. The thing with the dome is that the dome will throw the light everywhere, which is
Yeah.
fine, and there's a point of the dome. But yeah, if you well, the dome, you won't need to go plus or minus with the dome, because the dome will create a light source that is sending light in all directions. So it's going to be fine.
Okay.
If you were firing into the sky without one of these things, yeah, the camera's going to go, you're looking at,
Yeah.
most likely actually
Well, don't recommend doing that.
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
I wouldn't do that. I'd be aiming it. I'm aiming it down toward them, maybe at an angle, right? If
yeah.
it's
I mean,
outside.
I tend to flick it. So I mean, if you haven't got one of these, even just that, even like if you have the flash like that and the people are in front of you there, what's going to happen is that the light is going to come out of here in like this kind of shape. So
Yeah.
it is going to feather over onto them, and it will
Yeah.
look it will look nicer certainly than that,
Yeah.
by having it somewhat just going up into nowhere, but just feathering down. You may just have to put it up +1 or something on that, because this might be firing into nowhere and
Right.
making it a bit dark. So you might have to go do a little test and go, okay, I'm going to +1 it all night if I'm outside and doing this method where the light
That's
is
why I
just
thought
kind
the
of flicking.
dome at night would be good for this event because it's open sky, so the dome at least maybe will soften it, and I can maybe aim it a little more directly at them.
Yeah. Yeah, the dome will just send the light everywhere, which is fine. Yeah,
Okay.
I bought one of them a long time ago, and I was like using it for stuff, and I was like, oh, I don't like this, the look of it, because I can be pretty creative with this guy in a room. Like if I'm, you guys can't see, but there's a white wall that side of me, right? So if I'm shooting some people over where you guys are, I'll quite often like go that way, and it will create quite studio looking light. And if you have a dome on, it's kind of like it just gives you one option. All your photos are just going to be throw light everywhere and just see what happens. So that it's a bit, I don't know, see how you go with it, but it's a bit less dramatic and a bit less. It's just lighting everything up with a dome.
I
So
use the dome a little bit, like when I'm going to homecomings and they're like out in football fields.
yeah,
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if I would use a dome for that, just because like it is super bright, with where it is throwing the light everywhere. Like you can't control where it's going, if that makes sense.
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
used
That's the thing.
it.
Yeah,
I used it for my event because the ceilings were like 4 stories high. We're out in the lobby area, and I got great shots. I mean, Kurt saw them; they were great. There was no issues with them. I had the flash just aimed at like a 45-degree angle at them, and I was super happy with the results. I didn't get
yeah,
like circles under the eyes or anything
yeah,
weird.
yeah.
So
The other thing, if people are standing against a wall, that thing I said about underexposing, the more you underexpose, if people are standing with a wall behind them, the more you will get a dark shadow on the wall,
yeah,
especially if you suddenly need to flip this way. And I'll always flip this way and turn the light like this. But if you're shooting like that way, and then you need to flip this way, and you forget to flip it, you're going to get these sharp shadows on the wall. Which again, for event stuff, no one cares really.
yeah.
When you put up photos in photo groups or whatever, people are like, oh, you didn't balance your light right. The idea is that you're supposed to not underexpose so much that the flash is having to work and create that big shadow. You want to balance it so that there's a little bit of shadow, and the flash is just giving you enough light to light them, and the background is a bit darker. That's the balance you're kind of always trying to get right.
Kurt, it's saying they're like filtering some of the comments on our live here.
I really apologize, guys. I've barely looked at the comments.
It's
I've been talking
okay.
to you,
There's
Jess.
not been many. I would have told
Okay,
you.
yeah, sure. It's important to practice, says just there. Get a feel for dark areas at home. That's great advice. Josh hopped in here. Used to hear Josh. Carol Bells, Wing, guys. Hello, hello, hello. We've been talking about flash photography here, guys. Say hello if you like. Oh, there, Josh is still there. And we got 1.4 thousand likes. You guys are so much better at giving likes when we're not talking about such thinky stuff.
Yeah, I usually will give 1,000 myself. I literally can't right now because I'm
It's
like
totally fine.
thinking. So, and with regard to, the comment of practice, like I absolutely have practiced. I'm not, what really threw me off with this and why I wanted to have this talk with Kurt on this video is because like even Caitlin said, like we didn't realize that we could go down so slow with the shutter. Like that literally just blew my mind because I've been shooting for a while now, and anytime I've gone low, it's been a horrible experience. Like I don't want my pictures not to be sharp, so I was unaware of that. And like I said, unless I was using a tripod, I never would like. To me, such a slow shutter speed until today was a tripod only kind of situation with something that's like still. So this has been very eye-opening, and I do understand now how this is going to enable me to lower my ISO and get such a better result regarding less noise, which is like a huge priority of mine.
Yeah. So just one caveat about that, and just remember it when you're out there because this will mess you up, is it has to be a dark room, right? If you're thinking, oh, I can go slow because Kurt said I can go slow, and the room happens to be pretty bright, and you still have the slow shutter means that you're actually exposing the room pretty well and then adding flash to it, you'll be looking at, like I was looking at this and going, well, that's not working because this is too light. So it does need to be like a party vibe generally for that kind of low shutter. Otherwise, keep it up at 125. There's no problem with that.
Okay.
But
All right,
when
that's
you
super
need,
helpful.
when you need to, like you were saying, when you need to kind of bring the ISO down to get less grain, that's when you do it, and you can do it a little bit and get away with it because of the flash stuff. But again,
And
depends
then
on what
as for
you.
the shutter drag experience, to try to have like more interesting shots, obviously I'm going to be doing that once it's dark and there's more things going on. Like this event, there's going to be a live singer. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of lights and other really cool things. So in that case, now you're saying, I mean, I can just play with it, but I'm probably going to get down to like 1/30th of a second, maybe even slower for some of
For
that.
the shutter drag.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you know that the 1/30th at the aperture and the ISO isn't going to give you an overexposed image of whatever's around you. Like this bar mitzvah I was at the other night was kind of like that. It was kind of for kids, so that the dance floor wasn't that dark really,
Yeah.
and so they had like flashing lights, but trying to get the room dark enough that you wouldn't see the blur from the ambient light as well as the flash. That was what was tricky to kind of manage. So you do
So
need
what
the
did you
best place.
do?
Well, you just can't really do the show drag thing. I tried it
Okay.
with a bunch of things. I'm like, can't find that balance because the light in the room is actually, too bright. I need to like go way down to like F11 now at like
Yeah.
200, and I'm really trying to like, but with a 30th of a second or like, like anything like that to get the blur, it's soaking up too much light because there's just light here. You know what I
So
mean?
in that
So
case, though, you started going toward the aperture to see if you could get the result of what you wanted. You didn't go toward the ISO. You're obviously going down in shutter speed. So you're like, let me raise the aperture to try to see if that.
yeah, because I was hitting the bottom of the ISO. I was hitting
Yeah.
the bottom of
Yeah.
200 or whatever. So I was
Yeah.
like, all right, well now all I've got is the aperture to go down with, and I could go to 13, 16, but
Right. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't need to. But that's
My
how you do
camera
stuff.
would be like, "Are you sure?"
I know, right?
You've never treated me like this before. Hey Josh, it's good to see you. We have a Spidey friend. Are you still here, Spidey friend? You said this is great, Spidey friend. I saw your comment and now I've lost it. 47 new messages. What the heck is going on? Is that because I haven't been scrolling? I don't know what's going on.
Probably from me. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding.
No, there was a guy called Spidey. Are you still here, Spidey?
Yeah, I think he's there.
Spidey, this is great. I appreciate listening to new time photographers. Awesome, mate. Are you, Spidey, are you a photographer? That Spidey guy. How you doing? 2 new messages. It says 2 new messages, and then I scroll down to nothing. Not sure. If anyone is out there watching this and going, who's this guy? And this seems kind of cool. Come along, check out Humble Togs Club. It's on the t-shirt. The link is in my bio. It's up there. Jessa, Caitlin, Randy, who's man's best friend, giving us a bunch of likes here, are all in the community of Humble Togs Club, and we think it's pretty cool. Before we go, guys, I'll show you off-camera flash just quickly, because what you can do is then you can go, all right, I've got a trigger on my camera, and now I've got all this versatility because I can go this.
Yes, this was the next thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now,
okay. Thank you. Because
Yeah,
I'm
this is
over
the
here. I'm
thing.
like, what else do I want to ask? Will I have a chance? Okay. So I
Yeah,
have not
so-
done that. I see people doing it all the time.
There we go.
And I've even seen there's like a Godox one that I've seen some TikToks about that I'm like, oh, I really want that. And they're like, they're holding it up. So let's go over that because I want to explore that.
it's no different for your brain. Well, the setting
my
stuff
brain.
there's no different for your brain. It does get hard for your arms.
Yeah.
So like I'm holding like one,
Yeah.
like I haven't done this for a while, honestly. Like, and I was like, man, my back and my arms are struggling because
Yeah.
I was doing this and I had something in this, like I was doing it like this, and like it's tougher. So it's a lot of experienced people with a bit of budget have their assistant go and hold the
Yeah.
flash on a stick. At weddings
Right.
you'll see these guys that have the assistant just walk around and they're just a human light stand and they're just walking around with the light, right? But if you're doing it by yourself, it's fine. The TTL part, if you're holding the flash, the TTL part comes out of usually the red part there, so you can't hold the flash like this because the camera is reading information that comes out of
Okay.
this area here, right? So you need to make
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
you're holding it like that or however you hold it. And it's the same thing. You want to underexpose this thing, and then you can use the room, and this is kind of talking about the studio stuff I was talking about the other day, is same stuff. Is like, where am I? There's a big white wall up there. So I'm going to fire a light at you and use that wall up in the corner as my light source. And it's just going to create a much more dramatic studio looking image, right? So it looks quite beautiful, actually. That's the, where am I up here? So that's the image of you guys and my jacket and my desk. But see how the light is, I don't know how to describe it compared to, say, the one before we did where the light is just going straight at you. You know, like that's the light just coming straight at the computer area.
Yeah.
Right. And then the one I did off the wall, you know, people that don't know photography wouldn't notice, but it just looks like more a professional lit shot. It's more dramatic, it's more interesting, it's more beautiful, honestly. So the more you can figure out how to bounce this off the ceiling, bounce it off walls, bounce it off your shirt. Like, you know, well, I don't want to do this for a person because if I bounce this off my shirt, it would be coming up at the person here. But if you're shooting kids and you've got nothing to play with, you can do this. And I'm using my shirt now as the light source. It's just going to radiate down to kind of kids. I don't think I've ever done that, but I'm just coming up with ideas. You know?
I'm like, this has been pretty eye-opening.
Have a good play with it. When you're at gigs, have a good play with it. Try some stuff out. You can always shoot extra stuff and delete it later and not show the client. But while you've got your light out, while you're there, play with some stuff. Play with turning it around. Play with whatever. But just know that if you stick by the principle of figuring out the light in the room, underexposing that light in your camera, and then just adding the flash and having it on TTL, and then bounce stuff around, you're going to have a good time.
Okay, I have another question before you. I feel like you're trying to end this, which is totally cool, but I just have like one more question.
You go.
Okay, so sometimes I see photographers using flash for the entire event from daytime through night. I have never done that. I don't use flash
outdoors
like that. Yeah. So like this party, like, is that something, do people do it to have consistency in the gallery?
So some people like to use flash outside. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't like it. I just like being able to shoot natural light with a reflector if I need it, and naturally, because I think it's more beautiful. There are definitely some photographers that don't agree with that and want to pop light into bride's eyes in the shade, and I just don't like that look. If you have the light up on a softbox, you know, over here, that's really dramatic and beautiful. But popping light from the camera into the shadows of bride's eyes and stuff is, to me, my taste, a bit gross. I don't like that look. But
more of the like overexposed light and airy photographers, I guess, that do that. I'm not really sure. No, okay.
No, the light and airy photographers are generally using presets that just push all their shit to the top end. They're definitely not using flash. Honestly, the people that use flash outdoors and on photo clubs, people are always like suggesting you to, you know, use a flash to light the shadows. It's pretty old school, like 80s and 90s photography, realistically. You know, that kind of stuff. Using it off camera with a big softbox and lighting someone like it's a studio is absolutely beautiful. And like that's the stuff you see Hannah do. Hannah in our group does all that with dogs. So she's always got an off-camera softbox that's lighting up the dogs. All of those, that look that she gets is all really right down that alley. Do you know what I'm talking about, guys?
Yeah, I know who. Hey, let's add Hasselblad. He's requested.
Josh.
Let's add him in here. He's always got good stuff.
Josh has always got good stuff.
Yeah. Hey, Josh.
Josh, how you doing, mate?
How are you guys?
Pretty good. We're just running
We're deep
through
diving here.
running through some flash vibes here. Yesterday we did a live like this out in the studio talking about studio lighting. Today, Jess, I wanted to talk about this guy. Do you have opinions on that guy using that to fill lights in the outdoor stuff?
Uh, yeah, I I hate direct flash.
Yeah,
Direct flash is always bad in my opinion, but that's just my
yeah.
opinion.
Well, it is, and
Um,
I think anyone that's like been around photography a while, like it's an old school, old white
yeah.
man thing.
Whoops.
Whoops.
Now you got to see my
But
old
it's
face.
coming back. I don't want to do it, but it's really popular right now for like Gen Z.
Is it?
What
Yes.
I'd love
what
to
I
They
see.
want direct flash on everything. I'm
I'd,
not even kidding
I'd
you.
love to see what that looks like because, um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if they're talking about like softbox or over here, I mean, even direct
No,
flash
I'm
over
I'm
here.
talking about a speed light flashing directly at them. That's what they want. I'm serious.
Yeah,
Show
a
me.
tight flash beam with a wide angle lens, so everything falls off. That kind of
Is
Yeah.
that
look.
what it is? Is that what? So
Yeah,
they're spotlighting
yeah.
people's heads and stuff. Is that what it is?
It's a fad. Yeah, it's
It's
almost
a
like
fad
shooting
right
with
now
a
for them. Yeah.
permanent snoot. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I
What
haven't
I
seen that stuff.
what I did want to say though, real quick,
Mm.
is this is called a Justin clamp. Uh,
Oh, can I make that
so
bigger? Let me see.
I can.
maybe.
I don't. I can
I
go.
think I can see it.
No, I can
Oh,
go
thanks.
expand both. Expand. What's the highlight? Is that there was a highlight one?
I
Expand
think
one
if you
spot.
just click on my photo and
Expand.
then click
There
the
you go.
there you go.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, cool. All right.
S- So if you just search for Justin Clamp, it's on this one isn't actually called a Justin Clamp, but they're $25 on B&H. You can put them on a light stand, so it has a little light stand attachment here. You can also clamp them on anything that is small enough to, the jaws of the
Uphold.
clamp open
Yeah.
maybe about there. But this has a cold shoe and a ball head. So you can attach your speed light to this and clamp it somewhere. So if you're shooting an event, or I've used these in bars, like I had to do a story on nighttime karaoke in Florida. So I went to a bar and there was some really cool, uh, you know, uh, light in the bar created by the bar signs and all of that kind of stuff, the neon lights. But the people themselves were going to be horribly lit. So I took like four or five of these and I took my little speed lights and I clamped them all over the place. Now, you either need a speed light that has what's called an optical slave. If you don't know what that is, we can tell you. Or, like Kurt was showing, a trigger. If you have a trigger that's capable of triggering multiple heads, now you don't need your voice activated light stand, i.e., your assistant, to carry this around. You can just strategically place these around, and they're really low profile. So if you're, say, a wedding photographer and you're worried about, as the night goes on, the drunken guests tripping over your light stands, these are out of the way
Mm.
and they're really cheap. So
Hmm.
I
just a
think
tip.
most. Yeah, I think most people don't have the multiple flash thing, right? And look, I've never had more than two. But what Josh is talking about is that see on the trigger there, you've got like A, B, C, D, so you
Kurt, go
can
ahead
set
and
up.
switch it back so we can
Oh,
see you.
yeah, expand that one. There you go. So the trigger has like A, B, C, D. So they're groups, and you can set different flashes to different
Yeah.
channels, and then kind of like set them all from your trigger and stuff. I honestly have done very little of that kind of stuff, but it's a great idea for that kind of stuff. And you see some of those wedding guys will do that, where they'll put flashes in through the room and stuff, and just walk around and just shoot. So yeah, it's a cool way to do it. And even just one of them will get, like you said, get you off your voice activated light stand, which is the assistant holding it.
I want to
But
learn that one day though, because like it's especially out here, most of our, I would say a huge majority of our events are outside because of our weather. And so during wedding season and stuff, everything's outside at night and it's like not bright enough. Like you really need more light.
Yeah. Yeah. So play around with those options. Again, whether you're doing it off camera or whatever, it's always the same theory. Figure out the exposure of the area without flash, underexpose that, and then know that when you put your flash on, whether it's over there or whether it's here or on the camera, even if it's way over there, it's still going to measure the distance and fire what it thinks to be the enough light to hit the thing you're looking at. It actually goes through the camera and round in a circle, but yeah, it'll figure all that stuff out. So if you've underexposed the room, and then the light's going to light up what the thing is, you can't really go wrong unless you've made a bad decision about those numbers to underexpose the room. If the way you've underexposed the room is by, you know, I don't know, having the aperture too low and the shutter too high, like then you'll go like, why is this not working? Or the other way around, the aperture too high and the shutter too low, and you're getting too low a shutter for the room. You'll have blur and stuff, but generally in the light that exists at a party, hundredths of a second, 125th of a second if you want, 4.5 on the aperture, up in your ISO between 800 to 1600 to 2000, 3000 if you need it. Like all of those things, you can't really. You'll be in the pocket there, and TTL of the flash will figure out all the fun parts for you, and then yeah, you'll just get better and better at knowing that and being able to trust
I'm amazed, and I'm going to try this tonight because the last time I was practicing for nighttime photos, I absolutely had my shutter speed much higher. So I'm excited to try that and see what kind of results I get.
See how low you can push it. See how low you can push it. Yeah, like go out in the nighttime, go outside your house, have a photo of a tree or something smallish like a shrub, and go down to a 40th of a second, a 20th of a second, and see how if you hand hold it at 24 mil, the thing you're shooting will be sharp at a 20th of a second.
Crazy. I didn't know.
Having said that, I would never do an event and do it that way because, you know, things can happen and ambient light can come up. So I still keep
but
it up.
It's the exercise. But also what you said earlier was if I'm doing the event and using the flash and it's well lit, then I do need to increase that shutter speed because I need everything balanced really well, and I don't want to have such a high ISO and stuff.
Yeah, I'd pull down the ISO until it gets to 200 first to make everything darker that way, and then if you need to go up in the shutter, you go up, but don't go past 250.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, I'm excited now. I actually feel so much better. So now you probably know why I've been freaking out or what my problem is, because I didn't even know what my problem was because I didn't know I could do this. So it's a big deal. Thank you.
And all of this, like, it'll be good. Like, you'll go and you'll try a bunch of stuff and you'll have more questions when you come back and be like, I tried this, why didn't this work, and whatever. And we'll be able to look through the photos, post them up on the group. And that's how this whole thing works. So I'll say goodbye to everyone. We're up to 14. We've got double digits there. If there's people in here that aren't in Humble Togs Club, we are a community of photographers who aren't dicks to each other. If that sounds fun to you, come and join us. The link is in my bio. It's up there. It's a community. We do training. We do chats. We do monthly challenges. There's now a bi-weekly challenge because I couldn't call it a fortnightly challenge because you Yanks don't know what I'm talking about. You must say fortnightly.
Come and join us though. Like this. Look what I'm learning, you guys. When you don't know something, and so many people like Josh have been so helpful. So yeah, you guys should come join us.
Great, awesome, guys. I'll download this live and I'll put it up in the group too, which I did for yesterday's one, and that worked well to be able to download it and work it up. And yeah, so thanks everybody, guys. See you later on the next one. What is it today? What are we? Tuesday, Wednesday, or are we up to Tuesday? I should see you tomorrow this time, unless we're painting the studio, which is happening right now too.
Sounds like they're working hard on the studio.
They've got everything's closed down for 4 days, and we're going to do a big renovation of painting and all that stuff. So I imagine I'll be able to do this, but we might be painting at the same time. We'll see.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kurt.
No
Bye,
worries.
everybody.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.